All right, guys, it is late, so I am going to try and make this quick. We've got the breaking stuff out of Week 5, including the major collusion that is going on that we all know about with the Georgia-Missouri situation. We're going to get into that. But, guys, I'm going through all the ranked matchups, giving my official takes on these games, starting with Michigan-Iowa. This was a long day, guys, for me. So this game, I don't remember a lot from it. The thing that I do remember, in some parallel universe where Iowa does upset Michigan, okay, there was a drive in the second quarter where Iowa was completely screwed by the refs on a holding call that was pretty phantom. They had a 16-yard run. It gets called back. They end up somehow, their offense, in a miracle, they end up somehow converting a 1st and 20. Then they had some chip or some, chop block that wasn't even a chop block. It basically ruined their drive and their only chance at scoring before the half. Second half, Iowa kind of plays better, whatever. They score a late touchdown, garbage time. Iowa's offense still sucks. Michigan, I mean, they were getting good push for Blake Corum. He's a good, little shifty running back. I don't know, man. It's just tough to really take too much stock into that game because Iowa's offense is so bad. And Michigan scoring 27 points, it wasn't, you're facing a good defense. We know Iowa has a good defense, but I don't know. That's pretty much what I expected. The next game, we've got Ole Miss over Kentucky, 22-19. I think if these teams played 100 times, each team would win 50 times. Very evenly matched. The home team wins by 3 points, and this game, lower scoring definitely. Personally, I nicknamed this game the Battle of the Overrateds because I think they're both overrated. And the issue is when two overrated teams face each other, the team that wins just becomes more overrated. And that's what's going to happen to Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss is very good, but because they beat a top 10 Kentucky team, they're going to be thought of very highly. We had the major Brett Venables meltdown. The TCU destroying Oklahoma, scoring 27 points in the first 7 minutes of that game. Dylan Gabriel, the disgusting hit that he took. Guys, I was just thinking about this. I feel like if you have clearly a dirty hit on a quarterback that forces the quarterback to leave the game, it should warrant more than a 15-yard penalty because that basically ended Oklahoma's chances of ever coming back in that game. Now, of course, they were going to lose. We got a hurricane here or some sort of storm. Of course, they were going to lose anyways, but still, I feel like purposefully having a horrible hit like that and knocking a guy out, and you only get a 15-yard penalty for knocking the starting quarterback out with a blatant hit like that. I don't know. I just think it's crazy. But TCU is getting ranked. Oklahoma is going into their big rivalry game next week. Oh, my God. They're 3-2. They're looking bad. They're going to be underdogs. Quinn Ewers possibly back. But Hudson Card is playing really well right now. The next game, we have just horrible news for the Big Ten West. We've got Purdue beating Minnesota. Mo Ibrahim dresses for the game. He's on the sidelines. He doesn't play. Aiden O'Connell plays. He plays bad. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 40 pass attempts. I think sub 200 yards. Purdue wins a lower scoring game. Minnesota football, what happened? The Big Ten West. I think Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten West right now. That's how bad it is, folks. It is disgusting. Kansas State over Texas Tech. Good for Kansas State, getting a solid win. They were around 10-point favorites, and they win by that much. Kind of a higher scoring game than I would have thought, but they hold serve. We know they had that bad loss against Tulane. They come back, they beat Oklahoma. Now that Oklahoma win is looking a little bit less impressive with what Oklahoma's been doing, but still, and then they beat Texas Tech. So they will probably move up in the rankings, I would think, especially with the Pittsburgh debacle that's going on right now. Utah over Oregon State. So this is a funny stat that I tweeted out. Oregon State outgained Utah by 70 yards, and they lost 42-16. Crazy. Clark Phillips had 3 interceptions. Utah State threw 4 interceptions, I believe, total. Oregon State threw 4 interceptions total. And Utah, easily covers the 10.5-point spread in kind of a weird game where they just let Oregon State mess up, and they win that game easily. Alabama over Arkansas 49-26. This game felt like 3 games within a game. You had the first half, Bryce Young, the Alabama receivers breaking out. Bryce Young gets injured at halftime. Alabama's up 28-7. Arkansas comes back, it's 28-23, and then Alabama has 3 runs of 70 yards or more. I don't know how that happens if you're Arkansas. I think Arkansas lost this game when their head coach decided to kick a field goal when they were down 28-14. You don't do that. You're making a 2-score game by making the score 28-17 from 28-14. If you have 4th and goal at the 3-yard line, you go for that. When you're down 2 touchdowns, you do not kick a field goal there in the 3rd quarter. I thought that was horrible. But Alabama, the story, Bryce Young should be okay. Alabama's defense a little wobbly there in the second half, but they do end up well. Jamar Gibbs, crazy good game, 220 rushing yards. Alabama rushing, really good. They end up winning. 49-26, high-scoring game there that ended up being. The game wouldn't end. That game lasted forever. We've got Oklahoma State over Baylor. So kind of an uncharacteristic game from Baylor football. They allowed a kickoff return for a touchdown. They were a little bit sloppy in the fundamentals, and Oklahoma State on the road gets a major win for them. Very good win for Oklahoma State football. They win by 11 points. They were 3-point underdogs going into that game. You've got Penn State over Northwestern, 17-7. Rain game. Basically almost, downpour the entire game. Very little offense. You really couldn't do anything. There were like 7 turnovers in this one. The under was a complete and total lock due to the rain. And Penn State, they slug it out. They get the win. Northwestern is really bad. We knew that. Penn State wins 17-7. They do not cover the spread, but it was raining, whatever. Wake Forest beats Florida State. So this is a big win for Wake Forest. This is a big win for Clemson football, who beat Wake Forest last week. Wake Forest solidifies themselves as a top 20 team with this big road win. Guys, I said Wake Forest was going to win. They end up winning, and they were in complete control of this game over FSU. FSU dealing with the hurricane, dealing with everything. Limited crowd noise, things like that. Sam Hartman, no turnovers at home. That is a big win. We've got Ohio State winning 49-10 over Rutgers. This Ohio State offense is just lacking its 2 most important playmakers, Trevion and JSN. You can tell the team looks sluggish. They look lethargic. They look like they're going through the motions. Of course, they still beat Rutgers 49-10 because I don't think people realize how bad Rutgers is. Like, Rutgers cannot throw a pass. Rutgers was rotating quarterbacks in the first quarter. They had like 5 different quarterbacks. They're horrible. So Ohio State still wins 49-10. C.J. Stroud was not good. The Ohio State offense was sluggish. It looked like they didn't want to be there. And I think that's due, you're 40-point favorites. You're playing at home. You're without your best receiver. You're without your running back. It is what it is. It happens. They end up winning 49-10. There was a little, problem there with Ryan Day and Greg Schiano there. Ryan Day going for an onside kick. The next game we have Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Ended up being a really high-scoring game. Mississippi State wins 42-24. Texas A&M can still simply not throw the football, and I'm sure CBS is pissed at this result. Texas A&M is not going to be ranked next week. Going into the big primetime CBS Jimbo Fisher Nick Saban matchup, A&M's going to be unranked. They're going to be 20-point underdogs in that game against Alabama, pending on Bryce Young. What if Bryce Young doesn't play? Then it's going to be an even worse game. But Texas A&M, they're going to be unranked. Mississippi State, that's a huge win for them at home. 42 points against a good defense. That is impressive. You got to give them props. Then we had the Georgia game. So Georgia comes into this game, 28-point favorites. The line gets bet up to 30. They were losing 10-0 late in the first half. They were losing by 10 points in the third quarter. And guys, of course, as we all expected, the major collusion that happened there with Georgia and Missouri. Missouri getting a phone call from the SEC at halftime saying you need to take a dive, you need to lose this game because it would look bad for the SEC, and we want two teams from the SEC to make the college football playoff. Missouri winning that game does nothing for the SEC. They would get ranked like 24th. They already have 2 losses. They're not good. Georgia losing that game makes it a lot harder for the SEC to get 2 teams into the playoffs. So, guys, that is just more collusion. We've already got, and everybody in the comments is agreeing, and it's a major mainstream story at this point. The disgusting thing that happened week 1 when Dan Lanning laid down for his former coach, Kirby Smart, and Oregon with the collusion between Georgia, and now we've got this situation with Georgia and Missouri. The charges just keep getting worse and worse for Georgia. They're now looking at a 10-year bull ban. You can't collude with other teams. You simply can't do this, and this is the SEC calling Missouri and saying, listen, you need to lose this game. Okay, we don't care. We will give you money. We will give you a 5-star recruit, whatever. We'll give you NIL crap. You need to lose this game. It's not good for our conference if you win. That is what happened. We saw they backed off in the second half. It is unfortunate, but that's the type of stuff that does happen. And, guys, we've got the Clemson game that just ended. Clemson ended up winning that game 30-20 over NC State. I think the major storyline in this one is Clemson's defensive line bullying NC State and Devin Leary. Very tough game for him. Clemson is a team that can definitely argue they're a top 4 team in college football. That is a big home win. They commanded that entire game, and they end up winning. Kind of a low-scoring game that had a few late touchdowns there. We've got the Georgia Tech-Pittsburgh game. Right now, guys, Pittsburgh was around 24-point favorites. I am not going to wait for this game to end. I will just tell you right now, Georgia Tech is winning 19-14 with a minute left, or a minute 50 left. Even if Pittsburgh comes back, they need to be unranked. They're not good. That is a horrible performance against a really bad Georgia Tech team. We have USC and Arizona State underway. USC is up 14-7. Of course, USC is the major 25-point favorite in that matchup. We'll see if they cover that. And then we've got Stanford and Oregon. Oregon is driving right now. It is 4th down on the Stanford 19. That game is tied at 0. Of course, I have Stanford winning that game. It's going to be amazing to see with David Shaw, just an inspiration. Unbelievable head coach he is. But, guys, the major story, we've got the huge collusion case that's going on right now with Georgia and Missouri. Also, Oregon is involved. We've got other things. Michigan gets a win. Ole Miss beats Kentucky. Bryce Young, it looks like he's going to be okay. Alabama's offense steps up without him. 3 70-yard runs. Major stuff. Wake Forest, a big win over Florida State. They're going to be inside the top 20. James Madison is going to be ranked in the next AP poll. Kansas University is going to be ranked in the next AP poll. Shout out to them. So there is some huge moves that are happening in the world of college football. The biggest story, Georgia, the number 1 overall team, avoiding the upset. My official thought, they will definitely move Alabama in front of Georgia. Ohio State, it's close. I think Ohio State suffered a major issue with the Wisconsin situation. And what I mean by that is Ohio State crushed Wisconsin. We kind of knew Wisconsin wasn't that good this year, but then they lay a complete egg against Illinois. That win looks even worse now for Ohio State, so we have to retroactively look back at this stuff and kind of see the resumes and stuff. But Georgia will at least be number 2, possibly number 3, and then you have the idea that will Clemson move up and maybe pass Michigan with their win? I think they do. Michigan's resume is just simply too weak at this point. But, guys, that is going to do it for my instant reaction week number 5. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.